Hi guys, welcome to another session on Protractor. My name is Karanveer Singh. Let's have a quick recap of what we did in the last video. So in the last video, we understood design pattern technique, form, also known as page object model. So guys, let's have a look at the topics that we are going to cover in this video. So in this video, we are going to understand usage of different locators for Protractor, and we are going to learn how to create locators for Protractor. So let's have a look at the different locators which are available for Protractor. So these are the few examples of the locators which are available for Protractor, and they are ID, name, CSS, XPath, modal, binding. So guys, these modal and binding are specific to the Angular elements. So now let's understand what are these locators, right? Let's understand what is this ID, what is this name, what is this CSS, what is XPath, modal, and binding. So I'll just quickly shift to Chrome, where I've already opened Amazon, and I have opened the default example shared by a Protractor for an Angular application. So we'll try and understand elements from both of them, right? Because this application is dedicated for the Angular application. So guys, let's understand how we can locate the locators, right? So if I talk about automation, right, we have to enter some values into this input boxes, right, to get some outcome, right? This is where I need to enter something. So items where I want to perform any action, right? These are the items which we use in for automation as well. I want to perform my action in this input box. I want to perform my action in this input box, and I then want to click on this button. So these are the elements which I need in automation in order to perform any action, right? In order to replicate the action which I just did manually. So guys, let's inspect this. And if you see, I'll use this select an element inspector. And if I hover on this, you see that this line gets highlighted. Now, if you read this line, it says input ng model, and there's the value of this ng model, which is first. So guys, this is called as an attribute. Ng model is one of the attribute which has been used for this, right? For this input box. So ng model is the attribute and its value is first. Similarly, type is an attribute and the value is text. There's a class which is attached with this input box. Now similarly, if I hovered my mouse onto the next one, which is ng model, you can see it is select type. Ng model value is operator. There's a class attached to it, and then there is ng operation. Similarly, if we move on to the second input box, it says ng model. So this ng model is the attribute and second is the value. So in Protractor, if I want to identify this element, I can use this attribute, which is ng model, to identify this attribute. Right, no worries, we are just trying to understand the DOM over here first, and then we'll use how we can use ng model to identify this, right? Let's move on to a non-Angular application. The non-Angular application will be a little different than the Angular application. So I've opened this login page and I'll do the same thing. I'll inspect this. You can also inspect this, or you can also press F12 on your keyboard and you will be shown the same console or your element section, right? So for Amazon, the example that we have been taking for this project, if I have to enter, right, if I have to make some, if I have to enter any value, this is the input box where I have to enter. So again, I'll use this element selector and I'll click on this. As soon as I do, you can see that this line got highlighted, and as soon as I bring my mouse again, that is being highlighted. See, I remove the mouse. If I bring mouse again, the input box gets highlighted. So now let's understand the DOM for this input box. Again, the tag is input. Let's see the attributes which are available. We have type. Type is an attribute. Value is email. Then there's another attribute which is maximum length, and the value is 128. We have ID, right? If you remember, if I just show you back, see ID, ng model is what we have talked up till now. Then we have ID, right? If you see, I have ID here. I have name here. If I go back, I have name here. I can also use class, though we have not mentioned it there, but then we can also use this class So guys, these are the attributes which can be used to uniquely identify this and this element. I can use these elements, these attributes to uniquely identify this element. But there is one more condition. This has to be unique. For instance, what I'll do is I'll search. Let me just do this. Let me just increase the font size so that you can see. I'm not sure, I won't be able to increase the font size for this. But then, okay, no worries. Now what I want to search is I want to search this email ID. First, let's understand through the ID, right? So guys, if I have to use the CSS selector, right? You see this, this is called a CSS selector. So for ID, we use hash, and then I can just write AP underscore email. And if you see here, you get the outcome as 1 of 1. That means this is unique. Now let's try and use something else. Okay, so this is one way of actually searching the element, right? I used the CSS locator and I did this. So guys, these are the different attributes that we have in order to uniquely identify an element in the application. So now let's bring this into use. If you remember, I'll just go back to Visual Studio. We created this folder structure last time. Now let's add some elements to work upon, right? If you remember, we had created source. Under source, we had this home page and login page. I'll just expand this. And we had created these 3 folders earlier as well: feature, helper, step definition, right? And if I expand this further, you can see that in the helper we had added login page.helper and po.helper. So po was the page object file, the file where we are going to store all the elements, right? So now let's add these elements. First, to begin with, I'll have to export this class because these elements are going to be used in the helper file, in the code file, right? So I'll write export and I'll just name it as login page objects, right? And yes, we forgot the keyword, which is class, and I'll open and close the brackets, right? So I've defined a class here. I've defined a class named as login page objects, right? This is a class is the keyword, login page object is the name of the class. And in this class we are going to create some elements. Now one way is ID, right? So guys, if you are aware, in Selenium what we do is we do driver dot find by elements, and then we used to do something like this, right? But in Protractor the elements are being used differently. For elements, for attributes or elements in Protractor, what we do is, let me just first create an object. I'm using the keyword static, and let me just say that it's username, right? So what I've done is I've declared an object here, static, a variable object, static, and I'll give him a value. Let's say I'll write element by dot, right? And let me just close this. Yep, so first I get an error here, right? It says what is by, it doesn't know what is by. I'll quick fix, I'll say import by. So now I have imported by, and you can see I'll get binding, I get button text class, class name, CSS, ID, link test, modal, name, right? Partial text, tag name, XPath. So these are the different properties which I can use to locate any element. So for example, let's use ID. If I use by.id, we need to do this, right? So in Protractor, how we do it is we do it by element by.id, or the property that you want to use, and then we add the codes. In the codes, we mention the property, like over here. Let me just close this. ID is AP underscore email. So what I'll do is I'll double click, I'll copy this, and I will paste it here. So guys, username, I've selected the username. So this element, this will help me to identify username, right? So next thing in Amazon is the continue button, right? So again, you can see we have an ID which says continue, right? There's an ID which says continue. So let's pick an ID again. Maybe we'll try something different for the next one, right? So I'll write here again static. I'll write continue, and I'll again write element by dot ID. Okay, my mistake. By dot ID, right? I'll close the bracket first and then open the bracket, double quotes, and I mentioned continue. So let's say after we have done some, and if we have entered some data, I'm just entering a random data, and I click on continue. Okay, so it says, okay, let me try my email ID. Okay, so yeah, next thing that we get is once we click on the continue, next thing that I get is the password input, right? Again, in the password, if you see, we have attributes like type, password, ID, name, class. So for this, let's use name, right? So what we'll do is I'll come back to Visual Studio. I'll again write static. I'll write password equals to element by dot name, and I'll add double quotes, and the name I'll copy it from here, which is password, right? So these were very easy. Now for continue, let's see the one more thing, which is login. Okay, so login again has something attributes which are different. Sign in button is what we can use, right? I'll quickly do that. I'll say static sign in is equals to element uh, element by dot id, and I'll mention the codes. So this is the simpler way, guys. So these are the elements which can easily be located, right? I need not do anything special or anything challenging, right? In order to maybe locate these elements. But most of the cases, there are chances that you might face some difficulties, right, while locating the elements. Let's do one thing. Let me go on to the login page. Now, what if I want to locate this element, right? Or maybe let's say dishwasher. See, it says alt, there is nothing which is present, like we don't have an ID, we don't have a name, we have a class, but then I think this class would be common, right? But then there is nothing unique in this. How do we resolve this? So guys, in this case, we can create XPaths, right? Let's learn how to create XPaths as well. What I'll do is I've done Control F, which is to search anything. And what I'll do is we'll learn how we can create XPaths. So XPaths are basically the locators used to locate these elements, right? And for XPath, we need to start with the tag. So the tag is an image, right? This is an image. Along with the tag, I can use one of the attributes to uniquely locate this element. So the attributes which are present here are alt, which says dishwasher. Then there's a source, then we have a class landscape image, and we have data a higher again, which is the location of the image, right? So these are the four attributes, four, or I guess one, two, three, four. Yes, four attributes which are present in order to locate these elements, right? But then let's try and locate this element. So I've written image, right? And what we can do is we can again go back to the dishwasher. Let me just go here, and I'll do @alt. I'm going to use one of the tag, right? Again it went off, so we might need to locate it again. I'll do this, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use its alt attribute, and I'm going to copy dishwashers, and let me just paste it here. So we have a space here, right? So as soon as I did this, you can see it is able to uniquely identify the element. So now I can use this XPath in my file, in my PO file. Like, I'll just show you how we can use it. I say static, let's say dishwasher, right? That was, I can use element by dot XPath. So yes, if we use this XPath, this property, then I can add the XPath here, right? Guys, let's also try and see class, because we have used an custom attribute which was alt, which might or might not be present, but I think class would be present in most of the applications, right? So let's use class. So if I use class, right, and if I just try and copy this class here, so I'll just copy this class here and I'll paste it here. You can see I did that, but it shows 1 of 59. So that means we are able to locate 59 elements with the same class. How I can get to know? If I just keep on pressing enters. So you can see here, earlier washing machine got highlighted, then television got highlighted. If I'll press enter again, refrigerator will get highlighted. See, you can see refrigerator got highlighted. Now similarly, if I keep press, COVID-19 donation got, mobile recharge got highlighted, bills got highlighted. So that means we cannot use this. We cannot use this class. Why? Because it is unable to locate the exact element, right? It is giving me the element, but then it is also selecting 59 other elements. And guys, using while scripting, we do not want to select any element which has multiple references. So at this point, this has multiple references. We are just looking for a unique element, right? So guys, let's cover one more topic along with this XPath, and that is the keyword contains, right? Now, for example, this class is named as landscape image, right? Or maybe in future, there are sometimes CSS also present in the class, right? You have something like M5, M-5, or maybe P5, which means padding, right? Or margin, maybe. These things can be present in the class, but you only want to use a specific name. Let's say I just want to search from landscape. I don't want to use this image. I'm not sure, this image might get removed tomorrow. So how I can use, there is one more concept which is contains. Contains is again a keyword which will help us, which will help you to search anything which is similar to this. Now contains means class can contain something similar which is named as landscape. Whenever we use contains, we need to remove at the rate, right? And okay, so we need to remove, I'm sorry, we need to remove equals to, but we can let go with the at the rate. So now again, I've used contains, I've used a comma, I've replaced equals to with a comma, and I'm using landscape. I've removed images, and you can still see that I'm getting the same result, which is 1 of 59. Now this contains can be used with any XPath locator, that is either with class, with ID, maybe anything that you want to shorter down. For example, I can show you one more example, which is for alt that we did earlier, right, which was used. So okay, so we do not have anything, we do not have two alphabets there, we just have one. But see, even if I write dish, I'm not writing the complete dishwasher, I'm just writing dish. That means it will check the value if this is matching with the value. Even if there are few letters like dishwasher, I've just used dish, still it is able to locate the elements. So guys, this is how we use different elements. This is how we create XPaths, and these are the different locators which are available for protractor. Right, let's also talk about few of the locators for Angular as well. Now we have modal, right? we have modal. Let's see this input box. So input box for ng modal, we have a value first. If we have to work in an Angular application, I'll just search static. I'll again write this, right? First number is the element name, right? And guys, don't worry if you're unable to understand why we are using this static and why we are naming this. We'll explain this. We'll gradually understand in the upcoming session where we'll use these attributes. Then you'll understand why are we naming them, right? So first number, and I'll again write element by dot, and I'll write model. So if you see, we have this ng model. So this is the advantage of Protractor, guys, over Selenium, that it by default supports these attributes, which are ng model, ng click, ng binding. These are the additional attributes which are supported in Protractor. So now I can just use the model. I can open and close the brackets. I've by mistake removed the close bracket, and I can just write here first. Just writing the value of ng model, I'll be able to select this attribute. So guys, this is how we create the elements. This is how we locate the elements. This is what elements are. And I hope you've also understand how we can create the XPaths as well. I hope you find this session a bit interesting and helpful. Thank you, guys.